Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Here we are together. My name's Kate. You probably know that already. I am here as an immigration lawyer to talk to you about our news of the week, immigration news, and I'm here to answer your life questions. As per the usual, we have a lot of updates to give you. Not a ton of horrible things have happened in the last week, but I will give you an update. My law firm is Lincoln-Goldfinch Law. We're located in Austin, Texas, where we have an office that you can come in and visit, but we're also a virtual law firm. We went virtual in COVID and have been doing that ever since. And what's really great about working with a virtual firm is that because immigration law is federal, we can represent people in all 50 United States. And we know how to represent people virtually. We know how to take good care of people. We have a team of expert lawyers. There are 15 lawyers on our team. They are incredibly smart and passionate and mission focused, and we offer free consultations. So if you or someone you love or care about has been looking for an immigration law firm that you can trust, please feel free to reach out for a free consultation, or in the very least, follow and share this video with people that you love, because not only do I do this show on Tuesdays, I do this show in Spanish on Thursdays, and I also do videos every day with the updates. So anytime you see a news headline or you want to know what the real deal is about something that's going on with immigration, you can come to my pages and trust that I will have content out for you that is real. It's actually researched, it's reviewed by an immigration lawyer, and it's not just rumors and speculation. I take my job of informing people and educating people about immigration very seriously. It is part of the work that I do. And so if you need that in your life, feel free to follow me. I'm in all the places. You're probably watching me on one of all of the places. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all of that. So whatever, your social media du jour is, I am there. And so with that, let's go ahead and get started on the news of the week. The first news item is about immigration judges. So we have in the immigration court system, which is an executive branch of the government. It is not an Article 3 judicial branch. This is one of the things that is very broken about the immigration system overall, is that immigration courts are not regular judicial courts. They are executive branch administrative courts. So the Department of Justice, and therefore the president, exert an immense amount of control and oversight over the immigration court system. And this system has been getting more and more backlogged over the years because of a failure to prioritize and be efficient with the cases. And so we now are in a situation where we have over 3 million cases pending with the immigration court system. It's very backlogged. And we have had only around 700 immigration judges in the system. Well, the Trump administration fired over 100 of those judges. And wouldn't you know, the judges that they fired are the ones that tend to be more moderate or reasoned, the ones that maybe have an immigration law background or who actually apply the law in, a balanced way. Those are the judges that got fired. And the way that they got fired was very wrong. Some judges got notified in the middle of a hearing via email that they were being fired. And there are lawsuits around the ways that those judges were fired. But in a time where we have such a backlog system, to fire judges in that way was, of course, chaotic and disruptive. Well, they've now hired about 42 judges to replace those 100 judges that they fired. But of course, the judges that they're bringing on either have no immigration training whatsoever, and they come from like a military background, or they come from a very anti-immigrant background, like they've come from the side of DHS. So the Trump administration is creating more disruption, more chaos, more backlog in the immigration court system. And that's something that we need to really be aware of and understand when they go out there and they're giving these, news interviews and they're like, oh, the immigration system is so backlogged, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, then why are you doing precisely the thing that would increase the backlog? Number two, this one's a bad one. This one's a really bad one. So we've talked a lot about the surveillance state and how DHS is trying to and is accessing more and more databases and conglomerating all of this information about us in this surveillance state era, right? They're using software called Palantir that connects all these data points. It's really creepy stuff. And they're connecting, the IRS database. They're going to Western Union. They're going to the state DPS records. They're dipping into the national crime database records and infusing those with immigration. And it's basically this web of data that they're connecting about us, about all of us, in order to surveil us. The latest move is that DHS is attempting to access a database. I'm looking to see if I have the name of it. It's the Federal Parent Locator Service. So this is the most comprehensive database about families in the United States. And the purpose of this database is child support information, so that when one parent is seeking child support from another parent, this is the database that is used nationally to find out where that other parent is, where they work, the names, social security numbers, addresses, dates of birth of all of the children and of the parents. So it's this super comprehensive database of where people live and work. And the reason that they have all of this data is because every employer is required to turn this information in. The day that they hire a new employee, they tell this database who that employee is. So it's a massive, massive database solely for the purpose of child support. That's why it exists. Well, DHS is now attempting to connect to this database, which, as I said, is the most comprehensive database nationally about where people live and work and where children live also. And so it's really super creepy. And DHS is asking for access from the Federal Parent Locator Service to the Department of Homeland Security. This is from ProPublica, by the way. So what we don't know is how the Federal Parent Locator Service is going to respond and whether this is going to result in litigation. But super, super concerning, and I'll continue to update you guys about this. Next is the Supreme Court has granted cert on a case about the end to Syrian and Haitian TPS. So we've talked about this too. TPS is temporary protected status. This is a way that people who are in the country, from a country that has some type of collapse, get protected status in the United States. So for Haitians, it was people who were here from Haiti when the big earthquake happened in 2010. And for Syrians, it was when essentially the war broke out in Syria. The Trump administration has now consistently canceled TPS for every country that has had it, that has come up for renewal before the Trump administration. This is over a dozen countries. But because of statements by DHS former DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, who is a racist, POS, she has said that these Haitians are leeches, criminals. I mean, just the words that she has used to describe the Haitian population is so gross. And she said this stuff like on X, and this has become part of the litigation. It's like, you're clearly making these decisions and determinations on a racial basis. And the way that you're doing this is harming this community. And as we know, or as I've talked to you guys about, right after Minnesota and the chaos there, they were going to Springfield, Ohio, which has a huge Haitian population. This is the very population that came up in the debate with Kamala and Trump about the immigrants who were eating their pets. You remember that? That was the Haitian population in Springfield, Ohio. And they were going to go directly from Minnesota to Springfield and round up all of these Haitian people who had been in legal status all of this time, but they were going to revoke their status and immediately go round them up. People who are living and working and kids and families, no criminal histories. It was abhorrent. And so luckily the federal court stepped in and said, no, I'm kind of concerned about the comments you've made about this population and the manner in which you are canceling the status of all of these people, hundreds of thousands of people. And now the appeals courts have failed to release the block on cancellation, a bunch of double negatives. Basically, Trump canceled, asked the Supreme Court's blocked the cancellation. Trump asked them to allow the cancellation while the case moves up through the courts. All of the courts, including the Supreme Court, have said no. So that is cool and noteworthy that the conservative 6-3 pretty conservative Supreme Court, even that court has said, no, we're not going to lift the block on the cancellation, but we are granting cert on this case. Now, the Supreme Court did allow the cancellation of Venezuelan TPS. So that's an indication of how they're ultimately going to rule on this, but they did not have oral arguments on the cancellation of Venezuelan TPS. So, I mean, we don't actually know how this is going to go down. My message to Haitian, Syrian TPS holders, anybody in TPS, obviously don't rely on your TPS status as your protected status. Please consult directly with a lawyer. There are other things you can do. You can apply for asylum. You can apply for a trafficking visa if you've suffered workplace abuse. You can apply for other humanitarian visa if you've been the victim of crime, domestic violence. You can get a work visa. You can get a family visa. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do, but we don't know what we can do for you until we consult with you. So please go to an immigration lawyer that you trust. Feel free to reach out to me or DM me for a free consultation with my firm. Next, this is very sad. This is another death in DHS custody. I don't know what this takes our count to in deaths in custody. At one point, I knew last year, a lot more people have died in DHS custody in the last year than any other year ever in history in which we've been counting. So many people have died in these detention centers, which are massive warehouses with horrific treatment of people, including children, terrible medical care, terrible food. The climates are not controlled. The temperatures tend to be very hot or very cold. Basic life necessities are not considered or handled. Toilets, showers, washing people's clothes, ability to sleep comfortably. All of this stuff is compromised in these facilities. It has been reported all of this time. There's so many reports of poor conditions in these detention centers, and so many reports of sick people who get ignored or made fun of or told to just suck it up, take a Tylenol. And we had another death in custody. This man, Mohammed Nazir Paktiawal, is from Afghanistan. And the thing about him, there's so many parts about this case that are upsetting, but the origin of how Mohammed got here is that he supported the US during its war in Afghanistan as an interpreter for over a decade. This man was an ally to our military forces in his country, putting himself and his family at risk, so much so that he had to flee to the United States after we withdrew. And he was in a legal status. And yet, despite all of the support that he had provided us, putting himself in harm's way, himself and his family, our security forces arrested him in front of his young children, in front of their school on March 12th. Little kids. They took their dad away, and the next day he was dead in detention. And what we know is that he had shortness of breath and chest pains the night that he was detained. He was taken to the hospital, released back to the detention center, and the next morning his tongue swelled and he died. And we don't know why he died, but what we do know is that he never should have been in that detention center in the first place. And I don't know about you guys, but I can't stop thinking about those little kids who watched their dad get pulled from them. The sense of powerlessness that people feel when they watch their loved ones taken from them right before their eyes and they can't do anything about it is something that I hope none of us ever has to witness. It's an unimaginable pain, and that these children watched that happen and then their dad is dead. And think about what these little kids think about how they probably blame themselves, that they didn't do anything, and the trauma that they're going to have to carry their whole life. And for what? For what? How did this make anything better for anybody? Actions like this. And pro-Trumpers and conservatives are going to tell us, like, we need the rule of law and we need to get okay, this is not that. Can we agree upon that? Can we agree that what we're doing is not making anybody safer? I don't know how to break through the noise. I'm going down a rabbit trail here, but the conversations with people who have just been indoctrinated to believe that all of this is right and makes us safer, when we know that the opposite is true. It's absolutely the opposite of what they're being told. And we have data, we have statistics, of course, we have stories. But how we break through this noise currently eludes me. I guess we just keep doing this. Next news item. Oh, this is related to, okay, I'm just going to talk about like the agricultural situation in general. So, of course, we know the mass deportation scheme has impacted the agricultural sector in a disproportionate way, because 70% of field and farm workers are immigrants. And so, even if the Trump administration isn't specifically targeting all farm workers, which they are targeting some of them, but the fear of raids and detentions and removals has had a significant chilling effect on workers within the agricultural sector. So some reports are that farms, especially like fruit and vegetable farms, are at a 20% drop in labor because of deportation. And this is from Department of Labor's own statistics and statements in a regulation. Because of the stoppage of the flow of immigrants and the mass deportations, over 1.5 million immigrants have been deported. The agricultural industry is suffering and crops are dying. So the Trump administration has expanded the H-2A agricultural visa program. It's a guest worker program. And I'm pro guest worker. So I'll talk about that in a second. But let me talk about why this particular move isn't the right move. Number one, we shouldn't have had the mass deportation scheme to start out with. Number two, what they've done on these H-2A visas is they've extended the number of people who can come in on these seasonal agricultural visas, but they have significantly reduced the base minimum wage by about 30%, by dropping the hourly wage that is required to be paid to these workers, and by telling the farmers that they can now count lodging as part of the compensation package. And I was on a conservative talk show yesterday, a guy named Lars Larson, and I'll post some of these clips later today. And he was like, well, that seems fine to me. It's like, you're a lawyer. If you go work at some big law firm in a new city and they put you up in some high-rise apartment, shouldn't that be considered as part of your compensation? And I'm like, we are talking about rundown trailers on the farm, right? Number one, this is not like, high-level lodging. Number two, historically, this is just the way that it goes. You ask a seasonal crop picker to go and stay on your farm in Colorado for a couple of months, and you let them live on the property while they're working, because they're rotating around to different farms. This is just the way that it goes. And historically, lodging has not been considered part of the compensation. But the overall impact of dropping the compensation of agricultural guest workers by 30%, driving down wages in an already depressed and labor shortage situation, creates more instability, more difficulty hiring, fewer domestic workers available for the job, because what domestic worker is going to drop their wages 30%? So it also creates more of a need for exploitative use of immigrant labor. So it's bad for the farm workers, it's bad for the immigrants, and ultimately it's bad for the farmers, the farm owners as well, because it creates more chaos and instability in their industry. So the way that the Trump administration is going about expanding guest workers is not helpful or good. Number one, we shouldn't have started with mass deportations. Number two, we shouldn't expand guest workers by reducing wages. I will say in general, like as an overall immigration reform solution, I'm totally pro guest workers. I can't tell you the number of people I've met from other countries who would just not die, but love the chance to come here and work for a little while, make a bunch of money, and then go back home. They love their countries. They love their families. They're just, many of these people are just looking for prosperity and a better life for themselves. And it's a win-win when we have these circular migration options for people. But we have to start by saying immigration is good and we need immigrant laborers. Oh, and can we also not exploit them when they come here to work? Can we also just agree upon that? So anyway, that's and another news item is this is from Louisiana. This is niche. I didn't know this. There's crawfish peeling plants. I mean, I would have guessed that. In Louisiana, they are struggling because they can't get workers, starting with the mass deportation scheme. But also, this is interesting. Crawfish peelers are not seasonal agricultural H-2A workers. They are considered H-2B workers, which does not have an expansion. So the other thing to note is that this expansion of agricultural guest workers doesn't apply to everything that we would consider impacts our ability to have crops and food. So it's also just only a partial solution. So no surprise there. The solution is not a solution and ends up exploiting people. Okay, I've got a lot of questions coming in. Thanks, guys. Keep them coming. Starting with TikTok, Jaime Cortez. Are any of those newly appointed judges close to Austin? No, they're all in the big cities and the coast. The immigration court in near Austin is the one in San Antonio, and there aren't any new. Don't quote me on that. Not that I know of. I don't think there's any new ones in San Antonio. Oh man, TikTok, Fam Diaz Zavaleta, any news on Texas DACA? I'm like on the edge of my seat as much as y'all are. No news, but I still believe that no news is good news, because we know that the Fifth Circuit said that Texas won't have to issue work permits or driver's licenses to Dreamers. And we know that Judge Hainan received arguments from both sides at the end of November. MALDEF is litigating this case on behalf of the Dreamers. And then, of course, DHS is also litigated. So it's like MALDEF versus DHS, and each side submitted their proposal about what they would want. Whereas, of course, DHS is like, just revoke all the work permits. Judge Hainan, Andrew Hainan, is the judge who is responsible for interpreting and applying the Fifth Circuit's decision and giving us the outcome. But we are still waiting since the end of November on a decision from Judge Hainan. I think that he knows the gravity of this decision and is being very thoughtful and careful. That's my hope. And what I can tell you is, as soon as we have it, if I were to guess, I think probably there's going to be some decision that allows for non-renewal of work permits for Dreamers in Texas. And then that'll get appealed again. And then, that won't be final. Like, I think that Dreamers in Texas are going to remain in limbo for quite a bit longer. And I know you're used to it already. I mean, you've been in limbo basically your whole lives, but definitely in the courts with DACA for, 6 years now, longer. So just more of that to come, but I will definitely be helping you think through strategies. Like, I was talking to the head of a union, I won't say which union, about ideas about creating visiting positions in Texas, where the workers are permanently living outside of the state of Texas, but their jobs in Texas are visiting jobs. So there's going to be a lot of creative stuff like that cooking when and if we have this decision come down. Okay, Jorge Casares in Facebook. If I submitted an asylum case last week, am I still able to get a work permit? Yes. Yeah, totally. You have to wait 150 days or 5 months after you submit the I-589. So when you hit the 150-day mark, go ahead and submit your work permit application. Chispa de bomba. Thanks for being here with me always. Can family visas still be issued or processed when the country of origin is on the banned list? I mean, technically, yes. Practically, what we're seeing is a delay. In fact, I have a client who's been detained for a very long time, longer than a year, who is married to a US citizen with an I-130 pending, and his country's on the partial ban list, and they just, even though there's an expedite request on this case, they just won't decide it. So you might have to do congressional intervention on these cases, but it is just definitely creating delays. Okay, Leslie, this is a Spanish question. I'll repeat it in English. Hola, a mi pareja lo pidió su hermana, pero nos queremos casar. ¿Puede perjudicar? No. Eso no afectaría un caso de un hermano a una hermana. The question is, my partner has petitioned his sister. If we get married, my partner and I, is that going to impact his petition for his sister? No. The only case well, I shouldn't say the only. The case that you hear about is a permanent resident parent petitioning for their child. If that child gets married, it totally cancels out the petition, which is such a weird and unnecessary twist of fate. But permanent resident parents can only petition single children. So if your permanent resident parent has petitioned for you, do not get married without talking to a lawyer first about the consequences. In general, if you're in immigration and you want to get married or divorced, you should talk to your lawyer, because those things can sometimes affect your case. King Chavin, I stopped arguing with the right and started donating to causes that help these government victims. Oh, this is from Diana. Totally agree. Yes. Fight the good fight, Susan and Haley. Oh, thanks. Hey, Susan. To your point, Diana, I just want to remind everybody, like, there are so many ways that we support the resistance. And everybody's got their own flavor. Everybody's got their own skill set. Everybody's got their own passions. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who's been engaging in resistance efforts. And because of the way that there is a crackdown on resistance, this person is like, you know what? I don't feel safe doing this. What I want to do is rally all my neighbors to get together and like provide childcare and provide food and do, social support. And I was like, that's great. That is so important and necessary. And Diana, deciding not to argue with conservatives and just donating your money to the causes are doing good work, 100%. I personally, Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, feel equipped to go into conservative spaces and to talk about immigration because I'm well versed on this stuff. I'm a lawyer. I take it personally, but I also am able to shelve that for these conversations. And somebody's got to go into these spaces and have these conversations, I think, because otherwise these conservative people are just in their echo chambers and they just hear, what the radio show host is saying or what the wackadoo, right-wing political analyst comes on and says. So I want to go into those spaces and sound educated and thoughtful and say things that make them go, oh, to the extent I can do that, that is a win for me. And, I get a lot of hate. I get a lot of heat. I don't change most of the minds. It is often an exercise in futility. It often makes my blood pressure rise. I'm on blood pressure medication. And that is part of my flavor of resistance. That is going to the rallies, all of the things. And so we just pick and choose, and do not, for the love, don't give yourself a hard time. do what you can. This is also really freaking hard mentally and emotionally, everything that we're all going through, watching what's going down in our country, also worrying about AI, also worrying about the war with Iran and, the genocide in Gaza. And like it's a lot. And so take care of yourselves, make sure that you are balanced. And then with what energy you have, like pick something that feels good and right to you. And that's why we always have an action tip of the week at these shows, because it's like, there are little things that we can do, and it doesn't have to be the big stuff. Chiquilla. My niece submitted her DACA 4 years ago and still is in limbo. That is one thing that is held up by this decision from Judge Hanen. I mean, for Texas dreamers, it's good because they're not getting work permits revoked. But for DACA initial applicants, you're not getting processed. So the Fifth Circuit decision says DACA initial is allowed, but USCIS is not processing DACA initials until we get a decision from Hanen. So that's the good news part of that decision that's on hold. So it's, yeah. She's going to just keep waiting. God, has it been 4 years? Oh, Lord, have mercy. Ashish, can we adjust marriage status through C10? Do you mean your work permit category C10 or C1D? Is that C1D or C10? C1D. Tell me more what you mean by that. Jorge, do you have a rough estimate on how long it takes for the work permit to arrive after the 150 days is complete and the EAD request is submitted? I don't have my phone on me. It's right there, actually. Okay, so here's what I do when I have thank you so much. When I have a request, oftentimes I know this stuff off the top of my head. Sometimes I don't. So the question is, when I apply for asylum and then when I apply for a work permit based on that pending asylum, how long does it take for the work permit to be processed? So what I do is I go to USCIS processing times, and it takes me to egov.uscis. And then I go, it's like you select what form. So the form for the work permit is the I-765. And then the category, there's a ton of categories for this one. Based on a pending asylum application, then there's only one field office option. And then I go to get processing time. 80% of cases were completed within 1 month. That I've never seen a processing time listed that fast in my life. So looks like good news for you, Jorge. It'll be fast. Okay, Elsa, how do you contact me for a consultation? DM me on wherever you're watching me. Just send me a DM. I have my team on all the DMs, and they are very responsive, and we'll get you scheduled. Consults are free. Okay, last one from Chiquilla. Her brother submitted his DACA a few months before, and his was successful. Her case is pending. My guess, I don't know. We could do a consultation if it was a DACA initial. My guess is he got it right before the litigation, and she got it right. Bad luck with timing. There are so many people in this situation who are eligible for DACA initial, didn't file in time, and the litigation shut it down. It's just, it makes you crazy, especially when your brother submitted a few months before and he's had his work permit all this time. Oh, I'm sure it's just like, anyway, so many injustices in the system. Okay. Action tip. I'm super pumped about No Kings rallies coming up on the 28th. So it's not this weekend, but the following weekend, there's going to be a huge rally in Austin. My mom and my stepdad are going to be leading a song for the crowd with the Resistance Singers. I might be speaking. I'm speaking at the No Kings and Bastrop. Like, these are going to be massive. They are such uplifting events. There's going to be a bunch of nonprofits at the one in Austin. The Busing Fronteras will be there giving out swag. So action tip for this week is to calendar No Kings next Saturday, the 28th. Block your calendar, make a plan, talk to your friends, come to No Kings. If you're undocumented, don't. if you're a documented come. And I'll see you guys on Thursday in Espanol. Thanks for all the questions today, and see you soon. Bye.